my gosh. Hello, everybody. It's the end of the month. Hi, everybody. Happy end of January. It is now February, so that means I'm going to be doing a little wrap up of January of what I read and some of my thoughts, overall ratings for these books. And then I was thinking maybe we would go into some of my February hopefuls as well, because I have a pretty good stack of my physical TBR for February. So let's get into it. Okay, so I think to start it off, we'll go over some of my statistics for the month of what I read. So I read a total of 7 books. Today is January 31st, by the way, so not technically over, but it is the afternoon, and I think the last book that I am reading I will finish up tonight. So as of right now it's 7 books, but I think by the end of tonight I will have 8 books done for January. I read a total of 2,933 pages and had an average rating of 4.0 stars between my 7 books so far. So I would say that's a pretty good month, and now when I think about the books that I read and as we go through them, I do think I had a pretty solid month of reading. I found a lot of new favorites and read some really exciting arcs that I'm excited to talk about, but then I also had books that were surprisingly not so great, a little disappointing, if you'll say. I hate to even say the word disappointing, but that's just how it is. Okay, so let's start with the first book that I read this month. Okay, so the first book that I finished this year was A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. And this book I actually started at the end of December, but then I ended up finishing it around January 2nd. And I did kind of a dual physical read / audiobook read of this. I have had this book on my TBR for a really long time. I got it at a used bookstore for like $5 sometime in the middle of last year. But then when I wanted to read it, I went to go see if I could, have that audiobook experience because I heard that it was really great. And I had to wait through Libby for a while. But I started it at the end of December. I really enjoyed both of the experiences of reading it physically and then having the option to also listen to the narrator read the book. This is a very emotional read. It gets really intense. We have a lot of topics that are, hard to read about, and so I would highly recommend trigger warnings before going into this book. This is a book and an author, though, that I've heard about my entire life, it feels like, and, it says on here that he also wrote The Kite Runner, which is another book that I really do need to read, but it did not disappoint. Everyone that has recommended it to me, thank you, because it is just a fantastic read. Like I said, super intense, so it really just goes over the story of these 2 women that are living in Afghanistan, and it goes through kind of a dual timeline, dual POVs. It goes back and forth between these 2 women and how the challenges and traumatic events in their life bring them together. And it's really just the story of their lives, and it is a tragically beautiful, beautiful story. I highly recommend. And I ended up rating it a 5 stars. So first book that I finished of the year ended up being my first 5-star of the year. So that is A Thousand Splendid Suns. I then picked up a memoir that I got for Christmas from my boyfriend. This is The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. If you are a fan of Gilmore Girls, I highly recommend. I started watching Gilmore Girls for the first time in October of last year and quickly became obsessed with it. Saw that she had a book. My boyfriend got it for me for Christmas, and I thought that this would be a really nice book to come out of such an intense read like A Thousand Splendid Suns from. And I read it in about 2 days. It's a really, it's a memoir, so it's a little bit shorter, but still just as impactful. I think sometimes rating nonfiction books and memoirs is a little bit difficult because it's a lot of times just that person's personal experience, and I don't really want to rate the book based off of that. But I did end up just giving it a 5 stars on all of the platforms because I did have such a good time reading it. She is just such a powerful woman. She has such an interesting story, and regardless of if you've watched Gilmore Girls or not, I would also highly recommend reading The Third Gilmore Girl. So 5 stars. As you can see, I had a very good start to the year, truly. Okay, So the third book that I ended up reading this year was an ARC. I got it through NetGalley, and that was My Friends by Fredrik Backman. I did read this as a part of one of my previous videos, so I had more of my thoughts there. But because the book doesn't come out until May, I don't want to talk too much about it, especially because I feel like Fredrik Backman, if you've read any of his books, he tends to put a lot of like kind of twists in there, and I feel like it's more exciting, at least for me, to go into these books a little more blindly so that it just truly catches me off guard, and it's just an experience, truly, whenever I read his books. But it is called My Friends. It is about a group of friends. It is also a dual timeline of this group of friends, and then one of them when they are older, kind of retelling this story to someone else. That is kind of the non-spoilery summary that I will provide. I ended up rating this a 4.75 stars. Now I've gone back and forth on this a little bit. I really enjoyed this story. I mean, Fredrik Backman, I will read anything he writes at this point. But the reason I didn't go fully to a 5 stars is because I feel like the overall story was beautiful and gorgeous. The ending just kind of wrapped up a little bit too fast for me, and it didn't impact me as much as I thought it would leading up to the ending. Now, I've seen a lot of other people review that it did impact them truly, so I think it's just based off of your personal experience. But and I know I shouldn't compare it because it's not the same at all, but I was mentally comparing it to Beartown, and Beartown was one of my favorite books and series of last year. I just didn't feel the impact as much as I did with Beartown and that experience. So 4.75, I still feel like that's truly a great rating. So also, I'm so sorry if you hear any beeping outside. I don't know what that is. It's a vehicle that was beeping. I really hope that didn't get picked up through the microphone. But yeah, so 4.75. Thank you to NetGalley and the publisher for giving me that book. I was really so over the moon to read it that early. I did not think I was going to get the ARC for that book. And I'm so happy that I did. I'm really excited. I'm going to actually purchase it when it comes out in May so that I can potentially just reread it and then annotate it. I did highlight and save a lot of the phrases from that book, and I just do with all of his writings. I just highly recommend Fredrik Backman in general. So if you've never picked up a book by him, again, highly recommend. I will say though that if you choose to pick up, for example, like the Beartown series, I don't know what his other works, because I've only read Beartown series, Anxious People, and right now I'm reading a short story by him, but I think it would be worth mentioning to maybe look up trigger warnings because he will touch into some serious topics in his stories as well. Okay, so then the next book that I read in January was The Four Ruined Realms by Mai Corland. This is the sequel to Five Broken Blades that I read back in December. And when I read Five Broken Blades, I did not know that it was going to be a part of a series. I guess I was just like out of the loop on that one. So when I finished it, I was like, oh my gosh, it says to be continued. So naturally I look up, when is the next book gonna come out? 2 weeks from now? Sign me up. I went online immediately and pre-ordered it because I rated Five Broken Blades of 5 stars, and I ended up rating Four Ruined Realms of 5 stars as well, which I feel like, I don't know, is maybe an unpopular opinion. I understand that it was a little choppy at times, a little repetitive, and the end of each chapter in both of the books, it gets to the point where it leaves off on a lot of cliffhangers, and I know that can get frustrating, but I truly just had so much fun reading this. And I did see some reviews of people saying, so I don't want to spoil anything for the sequel because the first book leaves off on such a cliffhanger. I don't want to give away really what the plot is of this book because it'll just spoil everything. But essentially what the entire story is about, it's about these 5 people in their 20s. So yeah, 5 people that come together, and their mission is to kill the immortal king, and they are all assassins. So that's essentially what it is. So call it kind of like a Six of Crows potentially inspired story, but it has Korean mythology inspiration to this series as well, which I find really exciting and fun to read about. And I don't know, I just had such a good time, and some people were calling it like the Walmart version of Six of Crows, and I understand. I love Six of Crows, and it is completely its own thing. I just think it was fun to read about more of adult figures, you know, if you will, on this mission, and I do think that there were differences, and we do get all the point of views of everyone, each assassin, throughout both of the books, and again, it's just a good time, and there's going to be another book after this coming out, which I am already so hyped for. I just think it is a fun and interesting fantasy that kept me on my toes the whole time. Like, it was just a page turner, both of the books for me. So I also highly recommend this, but I have seen some mixed reviews on these books just due to the fact that Six of Crows has such a solid fan base, as it should. So I think there just have been a lot of comparisons to the series, but those are my thoughts on Four Ruined Realms. I then got another exciting arc, and I am a little nervous to talk about this one because I definitely had unpopular opinions compared to everyone else literally on social media that I have seen. So I got the Favorites by Lane Fargo from NetGalley, and I was so excited to read it, guys, because of how much hype I saw around it. And maybe that was my first problem, was that I knew the hype and went into it with the hype, because I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5 stars. And if you guys have seen anything about this book, or if you've read it yourself and rated it extremely high, that is an unpopular opinion. I was expecting to be in love with this story. I was expecting it to be this crazy romance. I do not classify this as a romance, by the way, so everyone that was posting that this was like the best romance, shame. Shame on you. No, all jokes aside, I don't want to take away from the writing from Lane Fargo, because I do think the writing was extremely good. It was solid writing, a solid plot. My thing is that I really enjoyed it up until the 70% mark. I think up until the 70% mark, I was on a solid like 4 to 4.5 stars. I was like, okay, this is exciting. Like, not the best read, not my favorite read, but it was like 4.5 stars. The last 30% was like chaos to me, and not in a good way. I just felt like we lost the plot a little bit. It just felt everything just felt so skimmed over. Like, there were so many serious situations that were happening, and we just seemed to move past them too fast. I don't know. It was not what I was expecting. It felt too long. I think the book could have been a little bit shorter and not have gone over certain points that it did. I'm really trying to make this not spoilery as possible, because I know it is still a fresh release and I don't want to ruin anything for anyone that hasn't read it yet. However, it is an unpopular opinion. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars, but so many people have like been obsessed with it and rating it 5 out of 5 stars, so I would recommend. It is a story about 2 best friends that grow up together. They go through some traumatic childhood experiences. It is Katarina and Heath. They then go into ice dancing and get really competitive and good at it, end up moving to LA to be with Katarina's mentor slash her role model, and then the life just takes off from there, and it goes through their years of their life. There's interview aspects of it because people are reflecting on their career and just their personal lives as well. It's drama, it's intense. There is a romance. I just wouldn't consider this book to be like a romance per se. But if you are interested in any of those things, I do highly recommend. I don't want to sit here and just shit on the book, because it was not like a bad book. I just don't think it was for me. I was just really confused by a lot of the things that were happening. But if you want my full spoiler review, I did write it on Goodreads. So if you would like to hear my full thoughts on it, I'll leave the link down below for my Goodreads, and you can go see how I felt there. Okay. I will say though, the thing about the Favorites is that the imagery of them ice dancing to some of these songs, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go on TikTok right now and look up every video I can find of ice dancing and just like really visualize this. It's beautiful, beautiful. Okay, after that, I then went into The Help by Kathryn Stockett. This book, I did put a lot of my opinions and thoughts in my last reading vlog, so if you're willing to, I would go ahead and hop over and listen to my thoughts over there. I don't want to spend too long talking about it because if you did happen to watch my last video, I was very conflicted just because not of the writing or really even the plot personally. I thought it was good and fine. I just found out some things about the author that just felt morally conflicting and wrong, about the story being stolen, and there was just a lot of what felt like white saviorism going on throughout the book. I found out that some of the actors that were a part of the film adaptation ended up regretting doing the film because of the white saviorism that was heavily displayed. So it just, you know, halfway through the book, it just started feeling morally unjust to rate it super highly, but I also think that it is an important story, so my overall kind of, I guess, feelings was that it is an important story and something that definitely needs to be talked about, just told by the wrong person and highlighted more of the white person's experience and struggles during this time, I guess, which makes sense because the author is white. So, you know, but I don't know. I go through all the emotions in the other video. If you would like to watch that, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I did read and listen to the audiobook of The Help and rated it a 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so for the home run, the big hitter, the book that I just finished last night, I read Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, just like so many other people on the internet that is also reading it. And I don't know what I rate it. I'm still sitting on it. I think I rate it a 3.5 stars. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of opinions. And again, this is another new release that I don't want to spoil for people. So I'm gonna keep it as vague as possible. But when I read Fourth Wing, I initially gave it a 5 stars. And I think looking back on it, I would not give it a 5 stars today. I think it would be around 4, 4.5. I had a lot of fun and it had a lot of potential. The plot did. Objectively, I understand and feel that the writing is not like a high fantasy, you know, it's not like the best writing. I rate it mostly off of like my experience and how much fun I had reading it. So Fourth Wing, 4, 4.5 stars potentially. Then Iron Flame came out and I was disappointed. I didn't hate it, but honestly, there wasn't anything that I took away from it that was that memorable, and the ending just kind of like made me mad. But I was still going to hold out for Onyx Storm, and I was like, I'm still excited. It's one of those things where I feel like I have to see it through, and maybe Iron Flame was just a filler book. Okay, so then we start reading Onyx Storm. We finish Onyx Storm, and I'm like, wait a minute. Did we get another filler book? Did we get another filler book? My thoughts mostly on Onyx Storm is that, again, I had a lot of fun actually, and I found a lot of the moments to be funny and lighthearted, and there were a lot of really good like character interaction moments, and I did fly through it like pretty fast for the most part. So like I was enjoying myself, but there were a lot of moments that I would stop reading and I would be like, what's the plot? Like, what are we doing? Why have we been doing the same thing for 300 pages? We shouldn't, that shouldn't be the case. And then I was like, did I learn anything? Like, is there anything that we've learned that's new in this story that is going to progress us to this next point? No, not really. I mean, let me know if you feel differently, of course, because like this is just like my initial thoughts reading it, and it was a lot of information to consume, so maybe I did miss something. But to me, it wasn't anything like groundbreaking for the story. I think Iron Flame and Onyx Storm could have been one book put together. Like I just don't think we needed both of these stories. And then the ending of Onyx Storm made me really mad. Spoiler. I'm gonna pause this right here and say that what I say next is a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want anything to be spoiled for you and you have not read this series or this book, then skip to this time frame. And okay. Like if I was mad about Iron Flame's ending, I'm really mad about Onyx Storm's ending. Just because they're the same. So we essentially had 2 filler books with the same ending. I'm just gonna leave that there. Yeah, and so although I had fun, and you know, it's fun to be in a world that you like, I don't really know what the progression of this story is. I think it could have just been a trilogy. I feel like after Fourth Wing, so much was already summed up and complete that Rebecca Yarros doesn't really know how to create new conflict because everything was so wrapped up in a bow, you know? Specifically with like the main characters and like their relationships. It's just a little repetitive now and frustrating because I feel like I already know how this story is going to end, and it's like, okay, we don't, like, what's gonna happen in the 4th book? If we have 5 books, I'm like, what is going to happen in the 4th book, and how is that going to end? Because if it's just the same thing again until we get to the finale, like, come on, you know? And I try not to get too upset about it because, like I said, I had fun. I know objectively, this is not good writing. I go into these types of books and stories for a fun experience. And I did have a fun time for the most part. But when I think too much about it, I start to get a little mad. So I think a 3.5 stars is where I'm going to end up settling on. Let me know your comments down below. I know I've been seeing honestly split reviews. I've seen a lot of people that rate it 5 stars and are obsessed with it. Like, love that for you. I've also seen people that like truly just hate this book and this series, and I'm like, I get it. I get both sides. I'm kind of split down the middle, so I'm just here for a good time. But I do feel like maybe 200 of these pages were a waste of my time. Those are my thoughts. So those are the 7 books that I have read and completed in the month of January. And like I said, I'm currently reading another book right now. I wouldn't call it a book actually. It's a short story by Fredrik Backman. I'm reading it right now and I'm already about 40% of the way in, and it only took me like 20 minutes to get 40% of the way in because it's a short story. I think it's only like 80 pages. So I will be finishing it tonight, so technically I'll have read 8 books this month, which is really good for me. Typically in a month, I read between like 4 to 10 books. Like 4 is the least I've ever read in a month, and 10 is the most. I sit around like 6 books usually, average, per month, so I'd say 8 is a really good month. But yeah, this short story is by Fredrik Backman. Like I said, it is called The Answer Is No, and it's cute so far. It's just, I just adore his writing. It was free to download for my Kindle on Prime, so I downloaded it, and yeah, I mean, it's just about this guy named Lucas, and the answer is no. He doesn't like talking to people. He doesn't like hanging out with people. He literally just wants to sit by himself in his apartment all day eating pad thai. And a frying pan ruins his life. That's all I know. That's literally all I know. So if you're interested in reading it and you like Fredrik Backman's writing, I already recommend it because I just will take any opportunity to read anything by Fredrik Backman. So, okay. Now we will quickly review the books that I plan to read in February. I already have a stack of them picked out because I have a pretty big physical TBR right now. For me, it's big, and I really just want to get through most of it as much as possible. I haven't gone book shopping in a long time because now I'm being sent books monthly from Berkeley, and I just keep accumulating new releases. Those are the only books I'm currently purchasing at the moment, are new releases. So I really want to get through them before I start buying new books. So here is what I have for February. There is a heavy focus on romance because of Valentine's Day. I also feel like it's just nice for me to read some more romance right now. I haven't read a romance in a long time, and I've been reading a lot of like fantasies and stuff, so I think these will be easy for me to get through, and I'm also just really excited about them. So first off, I have a new release that I just got. It is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young, and I read Out on a Limb by her last year, and it was one of my favorite reads of last year. It is so good. So I'm really excited to get into this one. These are characters that come from Out on a Limb. So I don't believe you have to read them in a specific order. It is just, they are in the same world. What is that called again? When they're in the same universe, but like you don't have to read them in order. I know there's a name for it. I don't know. I'll think of it probably like tomorrow. But I am very excited to read it. It just came out on Tuesday, and yeah. And I think it'll hit close to home. This couple has been together their entire lives essentially, and they're just kind of hitting a roadblock. They're just having a hard time learning to grow together. They are a fantastic, lovely couple and Out on a Limb, so I think it'll be really interesting to dive more into their relationship and how they kind of rekindle that spark and continue to build on their own personal selves while also building this life for them as adults. This is a book that I got from Berkley, so thank you Berkley for sending me this book for free. This is Spiral. I absolutely did not know that I needed to read or have Collide before this, but I will be purchasing that now. I don't think, like similar to Out on a Limb and Out of the Woods, you have to read them in order. Either way, I'm just too excited to read this one because I've actually heard really good things about it, so I'm gonna read this first. So sorry if you have to read them in order. I will read Collide eventually. I want to get it now that I know that it exists. I have not read a romance like this, maybe ever. And if I have, it's been a long time, so I'm extremely excited. It's by Bal Cabra. I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. But look at this cover. Isn't it just so... I just love the pinky and the yellow, and I'm just so excited for Valentine's Day and to read these romances. So there is Spiral. It is like a hockey ballerina romance, and let's see, what is the trope here? Actually, I don't want to know the trope. Oh, I just read it. It's a fake dating sports romance. So this might have been some of the most exciting book mail that I have received in so long. This is another book that I received from Berkley Romance. It is A First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I love B.K. Borison. I am obsessed with the Love Lake Farm series. I could not believe that I got this sent to me in the mail. I actually requested it on NetGalley forever ago and I got denied. Thanks, NetGalley. But I got this in the mail and I am so excited. I've also heard extremely good things about this one. I actually don't really know what it's about. I kind of want to go into it without knowing. But I'm so excited. I don't know what order I'm going to read these books in because I'm genuinely very intrigued by all of them and just want to read all of them at the same time. I'm not going to do that, but I really want to. So, First Time Caller. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you rated it. No spoilers though, please. Just let me know if you liked it. And then this is another one that I didn't really hear a lot about. I also requested this from Berkley and they ended up sending it to me. So thank you, Berkley, again for the free book. But now that it is being released, I am hearing a lot about it. So this is called The Wedding Dashers by Heather McBreen. And yeah, this one is about two stranded wedding guests finding their way to their final destination together in a riotously fun debut romance. So this is her debut romance, or yeah, her there. Swoon-worthy banter, forced proximity, mistaken identity, and almost one night stand. I mean, what else can I say other than I am excited to read all of these books? This is incredible. Like, I'm going to be kicking my feet and giggling the entire month of February. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? And then the fifth book that I have, so I mean, February is a short month, so I only have 5 books that I really want to get to first, but I wouldn't be surprised if I added a little bit more to it. Typically, I read romances much faster than I read other genres of books, so hopefully I can get a little bit more done in February, but these are just the ones I want to get to immediately, including, no, this is not a romance. kind of is. It's a romantasy. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent. I have been waiting to read this for so long. I am so excited to get into it. I am obsessed with the Daughter of No World series, and I'm also obsessed with the Serpent and Wings of Night series, which this is part of that world, the Serpent world. This is the other character that we do get introduced to and we learn a good amount about. It is Mish. So if you ever have read The Serpent and the Wings of Night, this is the story of Mish, the other vampire. Is his name Rain? I haven't read the book in like over a year. I believe his name is Rain. This is his partner in crime, if you will, that is in that book, and this is her story. And I have also heard extremely good things about it, saying that her story just is lovely, and I believe this will be a duology. I could be wrong. I literally should just look this up, but I believe this is a duology, and the second book comes out, is it in August? And it's called like The Fallen Dusk or something like that. I just know it's a Carissa Broadbent book, and I know that this world is super expansive to her. She writes a bunch of stories based in this world, but I believe it is the sequel to this book. I will look more into it. I just don't want anything to get spoiled for me before I read this, of course, but this is the other book that I would really love to get to first in the month of February. So let's do a little recap, shall we? Okay, so for a really quick wrap up, in January I read these books physically, including these two Kindle books, ebooks. Yep. And then for February, I plan to get around to getting around to, oh boy, these 5 books. And hopefully more. I'm not gonna put too much pressure on myself, but it would be nice to get some, make a dent in my physical TBR so that I can then get around to other books that I've really been wanting to read that are on my mental TBR. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys also had a really great month of reading in January. If not, and you are in a slump or just life has been hitting you hard and happening, I understand. I feel the same way. I am with you, and I hope that February turns out to be a better month, or, just a great month in general, and that we get so much reading done. But thank you guys for watching. If you stayed up until this point, thank you so much. I will have my Goodreads linked below, as well as my Bookstagram. But yeah, all right. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.